I still remember the exact way the room smelled that day. Stale coffee, printer toner, and someone's burnt microwave popcorn. But it wasn't the smell that burned itself into my memory. It was the sound. His laugh. That high-pitched, condescending, almost delighted cackle. We were in the middle of our weekly staff meeting, me, my boss, and the 8 other people on the marketing team at Preston and Wallace, a mid-sized ad agency in Chicago. I had been working on a new strategy deck late into the night for a dream campaign I'd been quietly thinking about for months. I didn't want to present it. I wasn't asked to. But when my boss, Greg, casually said, "Any creative pitches or ideas before we wrap this up?" I took the risk. Biggest mistake of my life, or so I thought at the time. I opened my laptop, my fingers shaking slightly as I mirrored my screen to the projector. I've actually been working on something that I think could make a dent for small business clients, especially women-owned startups who don't have traditional budgets but have serious potential. Greg leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, smirking already. "All right, Rachel. Let's hear it." I started walking through the idea, a scalable, subscription-based micro-campaign model tailored for niche e-commerce businesses. Think Etsy, Shopify, Instagram boutiques. Everything digital first, low budget, but visually powerful. My slides were clean, organized, backed with case study data. And for a minute, the room was silent, focused, until Greg snorted, loudly. And then the laughter followed. He slapped the table, actually slapped it, and tilted his head back. "Oh my God. You actually think clients would pay you to run their marketing like this?" My mouth opened, closed. No one else laughed. But no one spoke up either. I felt the heat crawling up my neck. My ears were ringing. I smiled, that brittle, reflexive smile women use when we're trying not to cry in public. I looked down at my slides, tried to finish presenting, but Greg waved his hand. "That's enough, sweetheart," he said. "Sweetheart." I sat down, closed my laptop without a word. My hands were trembling. I stared at the conference table. There were tiny nicks and scratches in the wood. I counted them to avoid looking at anyone. The rest of the meeting carried on like nothing happened. As I left the room, Greg patted me on the shoulder. "No harm in dreaming, Ratch. But let's keep the fantasy pitches to weekends, yeah?" I didn't reply. I couldn't. My throat felt tight. My eyes were burning. I walked straight past the break room, past the cubicles, all the way to the bathroom stall where I locked myself in and sat on the toilet lid, clutching my bag to my chest. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I sat there in silence, letting the humiliation settle into my bones like cold. The thing is, that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came later that evening when one of the junior analysts, Nina, messaged me on Slack. "Hey Rachel, I thought your idea was actually really cool. Sorry Greg was a jerk." I typed a thank you, then deleted it, then just didn't reply. Because something in me broke that day. Not in a tragic way. Not even in an angry way. It broke like a mold that had been trapping me. Something shifted, snapped, and suddenly there was space. Space to breathe. Space to see what I'd been avoiding. Space to ask, why am I letting someone like Greg define what I'm capable of? I walked home that night through the wind and cold, hugging my coat tight around me, thinking one quiet thought over and over again. He laughed at me today, but someday, I swear to God, he won't be laughing anymore. The following Monday, I returned to work. I was early, as usual. Greg didn't even acknowledge me as he strolled in late with his over-foamed latte. But I wasn't thinking about him anymore. I was thinking about how to quietly build something of my own. Not for revenge. Not yet. I didn't even know what exactly I wanted to build. But I knew one thing for sure. I was done asking permission. From anyone. The real seed of my business idea wasn't born in that boardroom. It was mocked in that boardroom. But the laughter? That wasn't a rejection. That was ignition. That was fuel. That was proof that I had dared to bring something to the table that made someone insecure enough to laugh it off. Because what Greg didn't know, what no one knew, was that while they were laughing, I was already laying the groundwork. I had domain names bookmarked. I had sketches of brand kits in my sketchpad. I had researched LLC requirements in Illinois and drafted a sample operating agreement. I wasn't crazy. I was prepared. They just couldn't see it. Yet. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, whispering a single sentence under my breath. One day, I'll walk back into that office, not as an employee, but as the woman who owns it. And the most dangerous part? I meant it. Long before Greg laughed at me in that boardroom, I had learned how to sit quietly with humiliation. Not because I was weak, but because I was trained that way. I grew up in a modest home in Dayton, Ohio. My mom was a nurse, always working double shifts. My dad was around, but not really present. He had a habit of sitting in his recliner with the TV remote in one hand and a glass of something in the other, only speaking when he wanted quiet or dinner. I was the oldest of three. My younger brothers, Josh and Caleb, were the boys. That seemed to be reason enough for everyone to pour their hopes and attention into them. Football, science fairs, late-night Taco Bell runs. My job was to babysit, clean, help mom with groceries, and stay out of trouble. I got straight A's. No one noticed. I skipped prom to work a night shift at the grocery store. No one asked why. I got a full ride to Northwestern. My dad just said, "That's good. That'll save us some money." There was no party. No family dinner. Just silence. I learned early that applause was for boys who threw touchdowns, not girls who studied spreadsheets and designed logos in sketchbooks at night. But still, I kept giving. Because somewhere in me, I believed that if I just did everything right, then one day, they'd see me. They'd say, "We're proud of you." They never did. I remember one Thanksgiving, I think I was around 23. I had just gotten my first full-time job in Chicago as a junior account coordinator. I was barely scraping by, living in a studio apartment the size of a closet, but I managed to save up enough to buy gifts for everyone. I got my dad a new Ohio State cap, embroidered. I got my mom a spa gift card. I got Josh a new video game he'd been talking about for months, and Caleb, who just graduated high school, a leather wallet with his initials. No one asked how I afforded any of it. No one got me anything. When dinner was done, and everyone was watching football, my mom stood next to me at the sink as I washed dishes and said softly, "You always go overboard, Rachel. Don't make the boys feel bad." I didn't know what to say. So, I just nodded. Okay. I always said okay. That was my role. Even my relationships mirrored that same pattern. I dated men who admired my ambition at first, and then resented it. One ex, Ben, once told me I was intimidating. Another, Jared, said I tried too hard to prove something. And the last one, a guy I thought I'd marry, broke up with me by saying, "I just feel like you're always planning something. I want someone who can just live in the moment." I wanted to scream, "What do you think planning is? It's survival." But I didn't say anything. I just nodded, packed my things, left with my head high, and my heart cracked open. Every time I gave more than I received. Every time I hoped that if I just loved harder, tried harder, worked harder, then someone would stay. But no one ever did. So when I landed the job at Preston and Wallace, I threw myself into it with everything I had. I stayed late, picked up slack, volunteered for the worst projects, brought coffee to interns, created pitch decks that made entire departments look better than they deserved. And Greg noticed. At first, I thought it was admiration. Later, I realized it was convenience. He liked that I made him look good without asking for anything in return. Every time I floated a new idea, he'd say, "That's cute, but let's stick to the real stuff." And I'd nod, smile. Okay. Again. Always okay. But after that day in the boardroom, something rewired in me. Not overnight, but gradually, like a light that started flickering after years in the dark. Because here's the truth I had been avoiding my entire life. I was never going to be seen if I kept standing in the shadows. I wasn't going to be picked just because I was patient. I wasn't going to be appreciated just because I was generous. And the people who kept overlooking me at home, at work, in relationships, weren't blind. They just didn't want to see me. Because if they did, they have to acknowledge all the ways they had failed me. So I stopped waiting. One night, I took out an old sketchbook from college. I flipped through pages of logo concepts, brand mood boards, packaging mock-ups I had designed for imaginary clients, women with online bakeries, eco-friendly candle makers, second-hand boutique owners. All fictional, all forgotten. But something about those pages made me feel like myself again. That girl, that young woman, she wasn't naive. She was visionary. She saw where the world was going before anyone else did. And she didn't need applause. She needed momentum. So I got to work. I worked on the proposal for 6 weeks. Not during work hours, of course, Greg would have killed me. I stayed late, locked up the office, and took the train home with ink-stained fingers and wireframe sketches crumpled in my bag. On weekends, I holed up in coffee shops with my laptop, poring over datasets, building a pitch deck with animations, brand colors, marketing projections, the whole thing. I even gave it a name, Hatch. A startup incubation program for women creatives looking to scale small, handmade businesses into full-blown e-commerce platforms. Branding, marketing, mentorship, and microfunding, all under one digital roof. I'd watched countless women, Etsy sellers, TikTok candle makers, sustainable bag designers, burn out without direction. I knew what they needed, because I had been one of them once, and I believed Hatch could change everything. So one Tuesday morning, I did what I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I requested a spot in the senior team meeting. Greg's assistant, Lillian, looked confused when she got the calendar request. "Are you sure you meant to send this to the executive board?" she asked. "Yes," I said, steady. "It's regarding a potential business expansion." She blinked but didn't press. "I'll forward it." That Friday, I stood outside the sleek glass-walled conference room on the 18th floor, holding my iPad like it was a sword. Greg opened the door with a frown. "You said you had a pitch?" His tone wasn't curious. It was bemused. "Yes," I replied. "Thank you for letting me." He cut me off. 5 minutes. We've got Q3 projections to get through. The other VPs barely glanced up from their phones. I walked in anyway. I delivered the pitch the best I could. I showed data on market gaps, presented potential influencers for brand alignment, offered a detailed 12-month projection of profit margins, user acquisition, social impact metrics. I even cited case studies from incubators like Y Combinator and Sephora Accelerate to show the viability of community-based brand launches. No one interrupted, which felt promising, until the silence that followed. Greg leaned back in his chair, folded his arms across his chest, and said with a smirk, "Rachel, this isn't Shark Tank." The room chuckled. My face burned. "I'm serious," I said quietly. "This could be a standalone brand under our umbrella. It fits our innovation goals, and I already have a waitlist of interested creators." Another executive, Terrence, who once asked me to get him coffee during a pitch meeting I built, leaned forward and said, "So you want us to bankroll what?" "Soap makers and crochet artists." More laughter. Greg shrugged. "Look, it's cute. And clearly you've put in a lot of effort. But this isn't what we do. We're not in the charity business." I wanted to scream, "This isn't charity. It's the future." But instead I swallowed it. "I understand," I said softly. "Thank you for your time." Greg smiled. "Hey, don't take it personally. You're a great coordinator. Stick to what you're good at." And with that, I was dismissed. The next week, my pitch deck was deleted from the shared drive. My access to the innovation folder was revoked. At the following all-staff meeting, Greg announced a new internal initiative, Upbrand, a mentorship program for junior marketing interns. "Small wins," he said, "can lead to big loyalty." He winked at me while saying it. It wasn't just rejection. It was erasure. A few days later, I called my mom. She didn't pick up. I texted her, "Rough week. Can I come visit this weekend?" Her reply came 5 hours later. "Actually, Josh is bringing his new girlfriend. Maybe next week." That was the moment. Not the boardroom. Not the pitch. Not the deletion. That. The small, sharp slice of being reminded, again, that I was always second. An afterthought. A ghost in my own life. I sat on my bed, still in work clothes, the late evening light pouring through my window, casting long shadows across the floor. And I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even sigh. I just sat there, still, silent. And something inside me cracked. Not in a breaking way, but in the way a seed cracks before it grows. I realized I was done asking to be seen. If no one wanted to listen, I'd stop talking. If no one wanted to believe in me, I'd believe in myself louder. If no one would fund my idea, I'd fund it alone. I didn't quit my job. Not right away. That would have been too obvious. Too reactive. And honestly, I wasn't ready, not financially, not emotionally. But I began to disappear. Not in a dramatic way. In small, surgical acts of detachment. I stopped staying late. Stopped answering Greg's 10 p.m. Slack messages with "sure, I'll update it." Stopped offering to prep decks I wasn't going to present. Stopped smiling in meetings where my name was never said out loud. I became invisible, but this time, on my terms. I stopped responding to family group texts too. The ones where Caleb shared endless gym selfies and Josh sent videos of his dog in a Halloween costume. No one noticed. Or, if they did, no one said anything. And that was freeing. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. To chase their attention. To earn my way back into a conversation I was always left out of. Instead, I redirected that energy inward. I reopened the Hatch file. Only this time, it wasn't for them. It was for me. I used my evenings to rebuild everything they mocked. I bought a domain. Designed the website from scratch. I posted anonymous surveys in Reddit forums and Facebook groups for small business owners, asking what they needed most. The response was overwhelming. Help with branding. Understanding e-commerce platforms. Someone to teach me how to market without feeling fake. Community. I just want to know I'm not alone. So I listened. I built. I drafted free toolkits. How to build a brand board, how to find your voice, how to plan a product launch with $100. I tested newsletter platforms. I took $5,000 from my savings, the emergency fund I'd guarded for years, and invested it in a Shopify plugin, a virtual assistant, and branded assets from a designer I'd admired on Instagram. It felt terrifying, but it also felt like mine. At work, they barely noticed I was no longer bending over backwards. They still emailed me at midnight. Still CC'd me on things I wasn't responsible for. Still expected the same over-delivery, but now I gave them only what was required. No more. No less. Greg called me into his office one afternoon. "You doing okay?" he asked, vaguely paternal. "I'm fine," I replied, cool and calm. He nodded, then added, "Just feels like you've pulled back a little." I smiled. "I'm just focusing on what matters." That was the first time I saw his expression falter. Just for a second. I started waking up earlier. Not for them, for me. I'd light a candle, pour black coffee into a chipped mug I'd bought from a local potter I now followed for a potential Hatch interview, and plan my launch. Each morning, I felt more alive. Each night, I felt more whole. There was no applause. No validation. But there was peace. And it was addictive. I quietly removed people from my saved contacts. Blocked one ex who still liked my stories but never messaged. Unfollowed Greg on LinkedIn. Muted my mom on Instagram after she posted yet another brunch photo with the boys. I didn't need reminders anymore. Not of who had failed me. Not of who had overlooked me. I didn't need to scream, "I'm doing this without you." I just needed to do it. The day Hatch quietly went live, I didn't tell anyone at work. I didn't post it on my main account. Didn't send it to friends. Didn't announce it in a big blaze of, "Look what I did." I sent a soft launch email to the waitlist I'd been building for months. 37 people signed up in the first hour. 23 downloaded the free toolkit. 8 sent messages saying, "I thought I was the only one who felt this way." And for the first time in years, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I felt real. Seen. By strangers who didn't know my name, but knew my heart. My power didn't come from proving Greg wrong. It came from no longer needing him to be right. I wasn't building Hatch to show anyone I could. I was building it because it deserved to exist, and because I deserved to create something that mattered. And that quiet shift, that complete internal rerouting of energy, became my revolution. No noise. No drama. Just clarity. For the first time in my life, my silence wasn't fear. It was freedom. You probably don't remember me. It was from a woman named Alyssa Grant. I clicked it open, curious but cautious. Hi, Rachel. I'm not sure if you'll remember this, but about 2 years ago, I was the intern who cried in the women's bathroom during that all-hands meeting in June. You came in, gave me tissues, and walked me down to the bakery next door. You told me I wasn't weak for feeling overwhelmed. That day meant more to me than I ever said. Anyway, I saw a friend post something about this new platform, Hatch, and when I clicked on the link, I literally froze. You made that? Of course you did. It's brilliant. It's everything I've needed since I started my own candle business 6 months ago. I just wanted to say, I'm so glad someone finally gave you space to lead something. Even if you had to build it yourself. Thank you for being that kind of person. Even when no one saw it. Alyssa. I stared at the screen, blinking hard. 2 years ago, I had barely remembered the moment. I just saw someone hurting and did what I wish someone would have done for me. And now that kindness had come back around. It wasn't just her. Over the next week, a few more emails trickled in. One from a teacher in Ohio who said she used Hatch's branding template to help her daughter start a handmade jewelry business. Another from a young woman in Austin who wrote, I'd never seen myself as a CEO until I downloaded your kit. I wasn't viral. I wasn't trending. But something deeper was happening. Word of mouth. Respect. Quiet admiration. Real recognition. Not for being likable. Not for being polite. Not for saying yes to everything. But for creating something that mattered. Then, the twist I never saw coming. One of the most popular small business creators on TikTok, a woman named Zia Nova, stitched a video from Hatch's anonymous creator tips and said, Whoever made this knows exactly what it's like to build something from nothing. You can tell it's not just marketing fluff, it's lived experience. I want to meet this person. That video hit over 300,000 views in 24 hours. My inbox exploded. People were asking about me. Asking for me. It was surreal. Even more surreal? Finding out that someone in my own extended family saw the video and recognized my work. My cousin Melissa, the only family member who ever treated me like more than background noise, texted me a screenshot of the TikTok. Melissa, OMG, this is you, isn't it? I remember you talking about this idea when you were visiting after Nana's funeral. I knew it was brilliant. You really did it. I'm proud of you, Ray. My throat caught reading her words. Proud of me. I hadn't heard that in years, not from family. And somehow, it meant more coming from the one person who never asked me to shrink. Later that evening, I saw Melissa's Instagram story. She'd reposted the video. Added a caption. My cousin Rachel built this incredible platform from scratch. No trust fund. No rich husband. No cosign. Just heart, hustle, and vision. Support real women doing real things. It was just a story. It would disappear in 24 hours. But I screenshotted it anyway. Proof that someone saw me. Someone outside the old orbit. And maybe the wildest moment came days later, when a coworker from my old internship, Michael, messaged me on LinkedIn. Rachel, you created Hatch? That explains everything. I remember you were always staying late, sketching things in notebooks. I'm working in venture capital now. If you're ever looking for early-stage funding or mentorship opportunities, I'd love to help however I can. That message hit different. Because Michael was in the rooms I'd always wanted to be in, the ones Greg and his boys' club kept locked. And now, they were knocking on my door. I didn't post a single "I told you so." Didn't tag Greg. Didn't shade my family. I just kept building. Because for the first time ever, people were showing up not because I begged for their attention, but because I had built something they could believe in. And that changed everything. It started with a single text. From my mother. Hey honey, your cousin posted something about a project you're doing? Hatch. Looks like it's really taking off. That's wonderful. We should talk soon. Maybe do dinner? No apology. No mention of the years of silence. Just a soft pivot into pretend normal. I stared at the message. It was so on brand. After months of nothing, not a birthday message, not a single inquiry about why I disappeared. Now that someone else had said my name publicly, she wanted to schedule brunch. 2 days later, it was Josh. He left a comment under a Hatch Instagram post. Just 3 words. So proud, sis. I blinked at it. Proud? The same Josh who once told me I was too sensitive to survive in business? The same Josh who laughed when I asked him to review my Hatch prototype and said, "It's cute, but nobody's going to take it seriously unless someone with real experience backs it." Now, he was publicly claiming me. And not just claiming me, but collecting social credit for being related to me. It made my stomach turn. Then came the email from Greg. Not from his personal account, from his assistant's. *Hi Rachel. Greg would love to reconnect. He's followed the success of Hatch and thinks there could be some exciting synergy between your platform and the work his team is doing at BPC. Would you be open to a conversation? Best. Kelsey. I read it twice, then laughed. Synergy? This was the man who told me I wasn't ready for real leadership less than a year ago. Now he wanted a meeting? What? So he could pretend he discovered me. So he could hitch his legacy to mine? No. Absolutely not. And then the worst one. A family group text. My mom, Josh, Caleb, even my Aunt Diane all chiming in. Rachel's doing big things now. Let's support our girl. Let's throw a dinner next week, celebrate her. So proud of how far you've come. So proud of how I had come. As if they'd been part of the journey. As if they hadn't collectively ignored me, belittled my dreams, and written me off as a failure. I felt cold reading their words. Not angry. Not hurt. Just detached. I saw them clearly now. They weren't coming to support. They were coming to attach. Attach to what I had built. To rewrite the past, as if they were part of it. To harvest some glow from the spotlight I had carved out of darkness. Melissa texted me separately that night. Please tell me you're not buying their act. They're all scrambling now because they're scared you might tell the truth. You don't owe them anything, Ray. You never did. And that broke something open. Because for so long, I had moved through life trying to earn back love that was never mine to begin with. I kept thinking, if I succeed enough, they'll see me. If I prove myself, they'll respect me. If I shine, they'll stop pretending I'm invisible. But now that I was shining, they still weren't seeing me. They were only seeing the reflection of what I could offer them. I never replied to the group text. Never responded to Greg's assistant. Never acknowledged Josh's comment. I didn't need to. Their sudden interest wasn't real. It was strategy. It was image protection. It was opportunism dressed up as affection. I did get one more email, though. From my mother. This one was different. *Rachel. I know things have been distant lately. I'm not perfect, and I know I haven't always been the mother you needed. But I'm still your mom. And I miss you. Let's put everything behind us. Family is family. We should stick together. I'm proud of you. Even if I didn't always show it. Love, Mom. I sat with that one for a while. Reread it twice. And then asked myself the hard question. Would she have written this if no one else was watching? If Hatch hadn't blown up? If Melissa hadn't posted that story? If Zia Nova hadn't shared my work? Would I have received this email? Or would I still be the forgotten daughter? The invisible sister? The girl who never got invited to dinner? I didn't write back. Not because I was cruel. Because I was clear. Great, moving on to... The voicemail came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was curled up on the couch with my laptop, editing some copy for Hatch's next release. The chime startled me. Unknown number. I almost let it go. Almost. But something told me to press play. Hi, Rachel. I hope this isn't too strange. It's Alyssa, the intern from that email a few weeks ago. I didn't mean to overstep by reaching out again, but something happened today, and I needed to tell you. My grandmother passed away last night. Peacefully. She was 91. And as I sat by her bed during her final hours, I kept thinking about you. You once told me, back when I was that terrified, tear-streaked intern, that the world needs softness just as much as it needs strength. That kindness is its own kind of courage. I wrote that on a sticky note and kept it on my laptop ever since. Today, I realized that line helped me show up for her, to sit with her, to hold her hand even when it broke me. That's the kind of strength you gave me. And I wanted you to know, you didn't just help me survive a bad workday. You helped me become someone I'm proud to be. So thank you, Rachel. Not for the platform. Not for the downloads. For you. For being the kind of person who makes the world gentler just by existing. I had to pause the message halfway through. The tears came fast. Not because I was sad, but because something deep inside me, something that had been waiting, aching, hoping, finally relaxed. I felt seen. Not as a founder. Not as a product. Not even as a success story. Just as me. The girl who gave tissues in bathrooms. The woman who spoke gently to the frightened. Who poured into others even when she was empty. I called Alyssa back. We talked for almost an hour. She told me about her candle business, how it was slowly growing. I told her I'd light one tonight in honor of her grandmother. And before we hung up, she said, "You didn't just change the game, Rachel. You changed how I see myself. And now I'm paying that forward." That moment? It was better than going viral. Better than 1,000,000 downloads. Better than Greg begging for a meeting. Because it was real. It was human. It was proof that my voice, the one they said was too soft, too emotional, too much, had reached someone's heart. And helped them stay whole. Later that week, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From a woman named Teresa in Florida. I didn't know her. She'd found Hatch through a local startup podcast. Her daughter used the platform to launch a baked goods business from their kitchen after being bullied out of school for her weight. Teresa wrote, "Your tools gave her confidence. Your voice gave her hope. But most of all, your story gave me permission to believe that maybe, just maybe, kindness still wins." I folded the letter and placed it in a small wooden box on my nightstand. The same box that used to hold all the rejection letters from when I was job hunting, begging for someone to give me a chance. Now, it held thank yous. It held proof that I hadn't just survived. I had transformed. And that transformation wasn't for fame. It wasn't for applause. It was to become someone who could offer shelter, safety, and strength to others just by being exactly who I was all along. It was a rainy Tuesday when I saw him again. Greg, standing in the lobby of the co-working space where Hatch now leased its headquarters. He looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I had just grown. He smiled when he saw me, like we were old friends. "Rachel," he said, extending a hand. "It's been too long." I paused, looked at his hand, then met his eyes. "You shouldn't be here, Greg." He blinked, caught off guard. I just wanted to talk. A real talk. Not a pitch. Just a chance to reset. He used that word again. Reset. Like the past could be wiped away with charm and a smile. Like his words hadn't once burned holes in my self-worth. Like he hadn't laughed at my dream and treated me like a punchline in my own life. I didn't argue. Didn't remind him what he said that day in his office. Didn't list the wounds he helped carve. Instead, I gently shook my head. There's no need to reset. We're not paused. We're finished. He opened his mouth, closed it. And for the first time since I'd known him, Greg didn't have a comeback. Just silence. And I didn't fill it. I turned and walked back into the elevator. Doors closed behind me with a soft metallic click. And I breathed. Later that week, Josh sent a message on LinkedIn. "Heard you turned Greg down. Power move, sis. Proud of you." I deleted it. Then came the call from my mom. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Rachel, I know we haven't always done things right. But families argue. They drift. Then they come back together. That's what we do. That's who we are." No. That's who they were. Who I was had changed. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. That weekend I drove to the cabin. The one I'd rented deep in upstate New York. No Wi-Fi. No meetings. No noise. Just me and my thoughts. I lit one of Alyssa's candles and opened Teresa's letter again. Read it by firelight. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for a knock at the door, or a call, or a message telling me I was forgiven, because I no longer needed their permission to be whole. I already was. I thought closure would look like confrontation, like shouting my truth in rooms that once silenced me. But now I understood. It's the soft no that ends a cycle. It's peace, not applause. It's choosing silence, not because you're afraid, but because you're free. It's strange, isn't it? How the moments that break you open are the ones that finally let the light in. For so long, I thought my story would only begin when someone believed in me, when a boss said yes, when a parent finally approved, when the world gave me permission to be big. But what I've learned is this: you don't need permission to become who you are. And sometimes, the greatest transformation doesn't come from applause. It comes from the silence after the door slammed shut. If you're watching this, and you've been laughed at, or looked over, or told you were too sensitive, too much, or not cut out for it, please hear this. You were never the problem. You were simply too bright for rooms built to stay dim, too bold for those who only know how to shrink, too visionary for people whose imaginations only stretched as far as someone else's shadow. You are not too emotional. You are emotionally fluent. You are not too soft. You are strong in ways they'll never understand. You are not too much. You are exactly enough for the life that is calling you. They may have shut a door in your face, but you are allowed to build your own house. And one day, whether in 6 months or 6 years, those same people may come knocking. They may want a tour. They may ask for a seat at the table you built from splinters. And when they do, you'll get to choose. Not from a place of spite, but from peace. Because healing doesn't mean letting them back in. It means you no longer feel the need to be understood by those who chose not to see you. It means your worth is no longer on trial. It means the loudest voice in your story is yours. So if today is your laughed at day, if someone told you you're not ready, not smart enough, not leader material, good. That means you're standing at the very edge of your breakthrough. They laughed at me too. Then I bought their company. But more than that, I bought back myself. And I would do it all over again. Because kindness wins. Vision wins. Softness wins. And you, just as you are, you will win, too.